Welcome to this week's BitShares DEV Hangout. This recording is brought to you by the Beyond Bitcoin crew. We welcome all BitShares members to join us weekly and discuss the latest news, updates, and developments. If you'd like to participate in our next meeting, then please join us live on Mumble every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Did you know the Beyond Bitcoin show now has a registered delegate? Please consider voting if you find our Hangouts and recordings useful. The delegate name to vote for is fuzzy.beyondbitcoin. Again, that's fuzzy.beyondbitcoin. The Beyond Bitcoin crew would like to send out a big thank you to everyone who's already voted and allowing us the opportunity to serve the BitShares ecosystem and our valued community members. So once again, welcome and please enjoy the show.
Today is Friday, January 30th. We're here for another Beyond Bitcoin Hangout with Bytemaster from BitShares Super DAC. For all the people in attendance and those who are not in attendance, please feel free to check out Bytemaster's blog. We have a link in the Mumble. And if you're a listener and you don't have access to that link, it is bytemaster.bitshares.org. You can check out there frequently and find out Bytemaster's most recent thoughts on a number of issues that surround the BitShares DAC and what cryptocurrency is going to do for life, liberty, and freedom for all. So with that said, would you like to get started, Bytemaster?
Sure. I would say the biggest update I have for everyone is that yesterday I saw Nathan testing a BitShares Lite wallet. There were a few small bugs that he's working through in the conversion from our testnet to the main BitShares blockchain. But I suspect those will be resolved today, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a release today, or at the very least early next week, of a fully functional Lite wallet that allows you to send and receive assets.
Awesome. So can you tell everybody a little bit about it, or is it kind of hush-hush for now? Or
No, it's all public in the code base. Anyone can build it, and if they know how to set it up. But of course, not everyone knows how to set it up. So the wallet's very simple. It's got a UI designed around the phone, so even though it's a desktop app, it actually looks like a phone app. It's built using Qt and QML. It's very smooth, animated, but very simple. It doesn't have a super themed look and feel yet, but it is smooth, it is functional, and it has an interface that could work on a mobile phone. The long-term plan is to have an interface that is more desktop-centric for the desktop apps and more phone-centric for the phone apps, but right now we have one interface for both. The fact that it's a phone interface means it's relatively simple. I think you guys will like how it looks. It will really help us to easily port this to iPhone and Android because Qt is cross-platform in that way. So I'm very excited about the potential for rapidly getting mobile apps on those platforms. So the system is really beautiful. I'll look forward to being able to give you guys a demo when you actually run it. So look for that before next Mumble session.
Can you talk a bit about the backend servers that are currently or will be or need to be implemented?
Backend servers for the Lite wallet?
Yeah.
The backend server for the Lite wallet is just our standard JSON RPC server. We added an encrypted authenticated connection to prevent man-in-the-middle attacks. But other than that, it just uses the unauthenticated API for querying information from the blockchain from the standard wallet. Right now, the Light Wallet talks to just one server, and the server does provide a account registration, and the server does broadcast the transaction on behalf of the Light Wallet and charges a fee to do so. So anyone can set up a Light server and earn money providing that service if they can get people to trust their server.
So anyone with a chain server should probably also be a lightweight wallet server as well.
Potentially. Yeah, you could certainly do that.
What do you mean by a chain server?
I can let BM explain it, or I can.
Go ahead, Riverhead.
To initially download the wallet and the blockchain, there are chain servers that are dedicated to just let you sort of download it quickly, as opposed to just gathering it from users.
So I'm not sure I understand, but continue as far as the rest of the thing is concerned.
Yeah, a chain server is just like a direct download versus a P2P download, so it's a little bit faster.
I get it now.
So that's the big news there. You might have noticed that Shapeshift has launched and is now integrated with BitShares, BitUSD. So that's very excited. A lot of people have been trying it out and been reporting success. So they're just the first of many gateways that are doing active development right now. So I'm very excited about that. We've been really revamping and enhancing the market engine for the relative orders for both performance as well as fixing various quirks with how the current market engine is executing. So I'm looking forward to getting those rolled out to DevShares next week. I'm assuming we can get all the tests passed. We are putting a big emphasis on unit tests right now and making sure that all the features have tests associated with them. So that's slowing us down a little bit. The grading tests takes as much time as writing the feature, but it is making steady progress there. Valentine has upgraded the interface for the Qt wallet, the web desktop wallet, including a new version of Angular, which is a back-end library that's 70% faster. The layout's improving, and he's incorporating lots of feedback we're getting from the DevShares network on the new layout. Hopefully that will get into a release sometime in the next 2 weeks.
I have a question. If we can back up a little bit, can you talk a bit about with the mobile wallet how it will know it's talking to a server on the correct chain?
It is using a trust model where the wallet knows the public key of the server. So as long as you know the public key of the server, no one can man in the middle of you.
I was thinking more about if the server got down a wrong fork. Like, does the client check for participation on the server?
It's the server's job to make sure it's on the right fork. You're trusting the server to stay on the right fork or warn the client. Right now, there's not much warning code in there if the server happens to get off on a fork. So, I guess the worst case, the transaction, you receive a transaction that didn't actually go through. So, right now the idea for the Light Wallet is that it should be for small amounts of money. You're definitely not for merchants to use for paying someone, but more for person to person. I guess it comes down to if someone sends you a transaction and it shows up, you know you're good. I do think I'll ask Nathan to put something in there that will check delegate participation and warn the Light client if there's low delegate participation on the server.
That'd be great. Thank you.
All right. someone started a thread this past week about using a simple dice game and bit assets as a way of driving demand for bit assets. And I wanted to get some feedback and some opinions of those in this room of pros and the cons of doing that. I think that BitUSD is currently suffering for a lack of any utility other than holding it in dollars, and you might as well do that in your actual bank account. So if we could create some utility for the bit assets that does not depend upon anything else, we can start to drive some user adoption to bit assets, which will increase the liquidity in the market as people try to get in and out. So what do you guys think of making a bit asset only dice game?
I have concerns about how that will be perceived if it's in the main wallet. I think I like the idea of having a dice game using BitUSD, but in the main wallet, I'm not sure that would be appropriate for all markets.
I tend to agree. I think that we have to be careful rolling out the whole gambling thing for other reasons too, right? Like, I'm sure there's certain legal restrictions that come into play, especially if we're looking with BitUSD. Now, along those lines, you said bit assets, so it's not just bit fiat currencies, correct?
Correct.
So would it be maybe smarter from a legal perspective, looking at one of the blog posts that you made about bit assets like bit gold and bit silver potentially being ways to lower the cost of having to deal with regulations? Would it be better if we maybe used something like bit gold or bit silver or something like that?
I just want to clarify that I don't believe any regulators have said anything about what blockchain protocols can or cannot do. The only thing regulators are concerned about is what people that perform gateway or exchange functions are doing. If you created a online dice game playing with fake money, that is unregulated. If you go into Second Life, there's all kinds of gambling going on in there that is completely unregulated because it's play money. So what is the difference between BitUSD, BitShares versus just various buckets of play money? The exchanges are still the ones that have to do the money transmission, know your customer, AML type stuff. But I don't think there's any restriction on what a consensus protocol can do.
Well, and this is a good question because there was a little bit back, I attended this online conference and met a couple people from someplace called Coinstructors, and they had a guy who works in Europe regarding the currency laws and stuff like that, and he's actually positioned himself into the cryptocurrency realm, and he said that they're coming for cryptocurrencies, and there are things that they're looking into, and there are things that we should probably be looking at. So whenever you made that post about gold and silver, I'm certain that at least here in the United States, there are states that have made gold and silver legal tender. I know that there are different laws that are on the books, and that there are some places where those laws are very highly friendly to people using gold and silver. So I was thinking that maybe bit gold and bit silver would be safe bets, so to speak. That's also kind of...
we have been investigating the potential of drop shipping gold and silver for BitUSD. If you do that, the drop shipper is the one that's knows the customer, is compliant with everything. And anyone, anywhere, at any time can become a reseller of gold and silver through a drop shipping service. And there are many gold, silver companies that support drop shipping, which means it's really easy to get an exit off-ramp to gold and silver. The on-ramp might be a little bit trickier, but that's one really exciting thing there. But once again, the regulators are dealing with the on and off ramps of going to and from gold and silver, to and from fiat.
So for those who are like maybe very new to BitShares, it's safe to say you don't really have to worry too much until you reach the point where you're switching from the digital version to the physical version.
Correct. Everything I've seen says that even with New York's bit license, that you're not regulated if you're a developer of a cryptocurrency consensus software or a user running said software. It's only when you start doing business of buying and selling money-like items, gold, silver, dollars, for cryptocurrency, that things start to get interesting. But if you do things entirely on a peer-to-peer basis, where if you want to get out, you find someone who wants to get in and you trade, that's not setting up a business. That's a fully decentralized exchange. And what I really want to encourage is for people to have well-structured Craigslist ads and have an aggregation site that aggregates all the Craigslist ads for people that are offering to buy or sell a bit asset for the real thing in your local area. And if people do that, you find someone close and you go trade with them, it's actually probably faster than mailing gold somewhere. And because it's person to person, no one's a regulated entity. That is the key.
Oh, that's nice. Since I've made my point, just to stay on this topic, does anybody have any opinions directly related to whether the gambling would be, or let's say games of chance would be an interesting and valuable thing to include early on?
Someone's going to build a dice game. I think it's a great idea. It's just a matter of when it'll be built and in what jurisdiction.
I feel the people that are interested in that sort of thing will seek it out, and the people that know how to write that sort of thing know who to market it to.
I think instead of putting the dice game in the wallet, we should be reaching out to third-party gambling sites and trying to forge partnerships there. Let them deal with the hassle and headache. They're already in that business anyways. And our target market really is for this to be a wallet, a Forex type exchange. We don't want to cheapen it, our business with gimmicks.
Somebody can launch, say, diceusd.com, which is available, and it would be a weekend project.
Well, the point is not that someone can create a centralized system. Those are all trust-based. The point is not that there aren't many dice games or that you couldn't create a dice game on a centralized site. The point is that centralized dice games are outlawed in the United States. You can't play Satoshi dice from the United States. So you can't serve that entire market with a centralized service, even if it's using BitUSD. And if you're using one of these centralized services, you're sending money to them and you're trusting them to pay out. Maybe they can prove that it was fairly done after the fact and they get a reputation, but there's still a trust factor associated with a centralized system. So we'd have a unique product in that it would be fully trust-free. Now, there are many different types of games, and not all games have the same stigma associated with them. Some games are seen as just for fun, just to play. Like your churches do bingo, right? Bingo's a game that old people play in church gatherings every Wednesday night. So it's not necessarily whether or not sometimes it's how you present it. It depends on, affect how people perceive it and the stigma it goes. If you can make it something that's fun, engaging, entirely trust-free, and entirely decentralized, then it can reach markets that the other gambling sites can't. It'll generate a lot of media attention, and it will provide an actual use for bid assets, and it will increase the yield on bid assets because all the profits, the rake earned by the gaming would then accrue to BitShares rather than to some third-party site.
Only if the rake was significant enough to make an impact. If it's not, then it just gives regulators another reason to maybe not be fond of our platform. If the project, if it goes through and it doesn't work, you know, we've already kind of put it out there and integrated it. I get that it's decentralized, but it's a risk kind of versus reward situation. And I would suggest that maybe the risk is higher than the reward is. I don't think that it will generate, my personal opinion is I don't think it'll generate enough revenue for the possible harm it could do.
I've been spending a decent bit of time, as everybody knows here, running bi-weekly hangouts with Hackfisher, LogSing, Bombastic, and a couple other people from the BitShares Play project. Is there a way to potentially work with them to establish easy gateways to switch in and out of Play shares and things like that, game coins and different stuff like that, and into BitUSD and Bit assets at some point in time in the future? Because it seems to me like that might actually, from a legal perspective, be a little bit more sound of means of going about doing this. Because,
all right, let's address this. A lot of people say, don't put it in the main wallet, put it in some other wallet. I don't care what the wallet has. I care what the blockchain supports. So a protocol level support of a feature that generates yield for bid assets and encourages people to buy bid assets and have fun and have reason to download a wallet and participate. All of those things will drive people to BitShares in order to try it out. Now, the harm is if the software gets labeled as gambling software end-to-end, right? Taints the entire thing, and then no one will touch BitShares because it's got some element of gambling in it. We haven't seen any decentralized gambling systems or play systems, but we do know that there's lots of legitimate online for fun gaming things out there. So making one that's decentralized could benefit BitShares. Now, if it becomes a problem and people don't like BitShares because of it, you can always have a fork of BitShares without it. And of course, the delegates can always vote to not approve those particular operations. But I don't know. It seems to me that it gives people a reason to try out BitShares. And once they try it out, a lot of them will stay around.
Well, Dylan makes a good point here. He says, however, there is already gambling in the client anyway. A CFD could be considered gambling for both parties involved. I mean, I guess it does go into the legal realm where they can kind of manipulate the language to cause whatever effect is needed or wanted.
Technically speaking, if you were to implement what BitShares does in a centralized company, and we've been accused of being a bucket shop, and bucket shops are not necessarily, they're frowned upon as a gambling enterprise. And Wall Street doesn't like bucket shops. But blockchain technology changes things because it is just a public record with everyone interpreting it the same way. So it's a feature people don't have to use, but I think a lot of people would use it. And then What will probably happen is you'll see an influx of users using it, an increase in the adoption of BitUSD, a whole new marketing angle, right? You can just market the gaming feature. And then so people who wouldn't try it for a cryptocurrency, wouldn't try it for the market peg, might try it if it had something. I think it needs to be something better than a dice game, but I have my ideas on how to do that. If it was something better than a dice game that didn't have the stigma of dice, but was perceived more like, ooh, look, it's got BitShares bingo, and it's engaging and it gets people involved. I think that would be a lot more interactive than if we wait for merchants to adopt it, wait for gateways to do their thing. We're waiting for a lot of people to provide infrastructure, and we don't have anything in the short term driving BitUSD demand except for people trying to hedge against BitShares falling in value. That can only last so long.
Riverhead asks, are there people that might be precluded from a wallet with built-in gambling due to religious reasons?
There are people that are going to be precluded from it no matter what we do. When I think of bingo, I think of church. So if you say, are you going to be precluding it? Well, there might be some small microscopic section of the populace that doesn't do it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in all wallets. Just because you can use it for gambling doesn't necessarily mean that everyone has to use it for gambling or that that's its only purpose.
You talked about it being at the protocol level. Can you think of anything else that the infrastructure at the protocol level that's going to be used to implement the gaming could be used like from a business perspective or trading perspective?
About the only thing at that level is the random number generation.
One thing that occurs to me is if your primary concern, Bytemaster, is the things to be implemented at the protocol level, and as you said, you didn't care whether it's in the wallet. Well, you can't get it adopted if it's not in the wallet. I don't see how the protocol level is going to help anybody unless we devote resources to get it in the wallet or get it in some other fashion that can be used.
It's easy to create two wallets, one with it and one without it.
Well, that still takes resources, but that's your call as to what resources are warranted.
If it's a module, I guess it could just be like a checkbox. Like, you're installing some software. It's like, do you want this piece? Do you want that piece?
And there's also kind of a place. This is kind of where stuff like play comes in my mind, because what Tom said about resources is, you do have this crossover. And I've always personally, and I don't know if everybody, I'm pretty certain that not everybody feels this way. But I think of anything that's based on BitShares as almost being potential allies, where they can share their development teams to maximize the effectiveness of their efforts and the limited development, not necessarily limited, but finite development resources and special expertise in certain areas to be able to kind of form alliances that would essentially help both teams. You know what I mean? So I find myself wondering, a lot of this stuff that we're talking about, like bingo, my mom would be able to get on her tablet and play bingo that she downloads through the App Store. It would be very easy to integrate that into, something like Play or BitShares. Is there any reason why these games couldn't use both of them, BitUSD and POS, for, jurisdictional reasons? If somebody is in the US, for instance, they might want to use POS, or someplace with really strong legal requirements for using BitUSD and stuff like that potentially, and then be able to offer that stuff for jurisdictions that might be a little bit more lax. I guess what I'm saying is, is there a potential for working together on some of this stuff?
There's potential for working together. As far as so everyone knows what type of resources or level of effort I'm thinking that a working game could be implemented for 80 man hours. But as far as how many different wallets there are, the question is that does one feature of the protocol taint the others? And this is something that we need to address, because guess what? Ethereum will be able to do this because their protocol level allows anything to be programmed into it. So it's in many ways no different than us implementing a smart contract that does this. So our system and Ethereum would be technically on the same footing as soon as one person creates that contract. And let's follow this to our conclusion. BitShares intends to offer full scripting support in the future. So if we are going to support full scripting support in the future, that means that in the future, let's say a year from now, someone will be able to create a script, publish on the blockchain, and implement this exact feature, which will cause all the harm that you're worried about existing if we implement it today.
The difference, though, is that a year from now, we'll have a lot more market share and things will be evolved further, and therefore it won't be quite as critical in terms of stigma.
We know that the Bitcoin early adoption was largely driven by the gambling. Gambling was the very first thing that you could actually do with your Bitcoins that caught on. I think that if we're going to have the stigma eventually, right, over the course of the next year, we're going to be integrating with various exchanges. I don't see any of our existing partners caring about what stuff happens on our blockchain. They only care about the buying, selling of the token on their platform. So either Ethereum and any blockchain that doesn't support, any blockchain that supports a Turing-complete language is going to be completely shunned by the entire financial system, or the financial system is going to be adopting blockchains that allow people to gamble on them. Given that reality, what is going to drive adoption in the next year? In the next year, if we can give people something they can do and have fun with and play and tell their friends about, because, hey, guess what? You can now play this. You're more likely to get viral growth. More people are going to try it out because, hey, I want to play. That sounds like fun. Versus people saying, hey, I want to invest. And they're not really investing. They're just buying BitUSD so they can play a game. And I think that we'll get many more users in the door if we can give them something fun to do when they get there, because the fun is what will drive people to share it. Right now, BitShares isn't fun. BitShares is incredibly practical. It's trying to give people an option, and it does these things, but one thing it's not is it's not fun. And that's going to greatly harm our adoption.
Well, that's where I think why Fuzzy brought up the whole idea of introducing the games, becoming more involved with the games perspective, because that doesn't necessarily conjure up an image of gambling. But what you're talking about, Bytemaster, sounds like it's really kind of focused on playing for the sake of winning and gambling, as opposed to playing for the just sake of, because it's the next greatest cool fad to play with.
I know, Bytemaster, you're going to have something to say, but I really want to say this. Would it be possible for, say, I keep thinking of CryptoFresh would be the first example, because obviously that's the first site where you can really buy a lot of stuff like directly through your wallet, right? I find myself wondering, what if there was an element of gambling added into it? Like, if I go out and I buy a Coca-Cola, there is underneath every cap a code that I can go redeem for a chance to win numerous prizes, right? So that obviously isn't considered gambling, but it has a psychological benefits of gambling that, sorry, I'm going to have to hold off. We'll just cut off with psychological benefits of gambling. I've got a baby screaming in the background. Go ahead.
I think it's a cool idea, but I'm pretty sure that's why they say no purchase necessary.
Oh, that's a good point.
I think the bigger argument here is, to centralize or not to centralize. I'm not disputing the fun value of gambling. I'm disputing whether or not the people that are currently gambling are going to care that it's decentralized. They've already spoken. They already use centralized methods. So is the fact that our service is going to be decentralized enough to sway them from their current gambling places? Instead of maybe trying to focus on this centralized thing, we could garner utility by partnering with businesses that are already doing it. Let them keep doing what they're doing. They can gamble.
I personally can see both sides of it. I see how you would want to have decentralization in it as well, because you look at what happened with Satoshi Dice, for instance, and some of the stuff that happens whenever you are running these potential services. It can be very scary for providers, and it can be scary for users as well, depending on your jurisdiction. So the decentralization factor of it could be seen as a protective measure, or something that takes the fear out of the equation for the everyday user. But to me, it's a huge potential risk.
I view the centralized gambling sites like I view centralized exchanges. You could say the market's already spoken and they're willing to use centralized exchanges. Why should we create a decentralized one? Because when you put your money on these gambling sites, if something happens to the site, you might not be able to get your money back out. Okay, you're gambling with the site. You don't have any privacy necessarily with these gambling sites. So I do think that we want to make it more fun, deal or no deal, bingo style things, rather than, it's a dice game or poker or blackjack or something. Stay away from the games you see in Vegas and instead focus on the games you see on TV and
what kids play.
Yes. If kids play it, then that's harmless fun, and that's much better than, dice. I'm actually not really excited about dice. I think dice is pretty lame. But I think if we had something more engaging, like bingo or deal or no deal, it could be a lot more fun than what the other crypto gambling sites are offering.
I really like the idea of having this built into the protocol. And I also really like the idea of having a game, a wallet that supports gaming and a wallet that doesn't. It would be an excellent opportunity for us to demonstrate the flexibility of being able to deploy a wallet with different functionality. And using what you were saying about or someone was saying carnival games or games that kids play, the use of BitUSD wouldn't be gambling in the sense that, hey, you can put a bid in and win. It would be like micro purchases, pay to play sort of thing, like people are used to with their cell phone games.
What I was going to say is that you mentioned earlier, Bytemaster, that one of the things that really launched Bitcoin into the stratosphere was a very major impact on Bitcoin's adoption was gambling. Well, I mean, that was a long time ago, and it's a different landscape now, and there's a whole other set of focuses and scrutinies and everything else. Now, I think if you try to do the same type of thing, you're going to have a lot more heat on you one way or another. So I agree that a play with the kids' mindset in terms of that type of thing might be a better approach to go, but I'm not sure the analogy about what launched Bitcoin and whether that's going to help us right now is going to really be appropriate or apropos.
Well, is there a way of necessarily? I mean, there could be the potential to have a separate wallet, right, where you utilize some of the functionality of Play, and Debut plays some of Play's features along with some of BitShares features, and kind of advertise both wallets separately at the same time. They might not have full functionality for all things, but is there a way of doing something like that you guys can think of?
I was thinking more along the lines of I think that the goal here is to have it in the protocol, and and to give a use for BitUSD beyond just merchant adoption and savings accounts. So I think one way to do that and get around the gambling perception is simply do what cell phone apps have done with micro purchases. That the games are free to play, but if you want the extra super special good thing, it costs you 1 penny or 2 pennies.
But that's different when you look at it from, you can't then take your your in-game currency and turn it back into, say, BitUSD. What he's talking about is you'd put BitUSD in and get BitUSD back.
Well, my point is you shouldn't get back. That the whole point is to have a use to spend BitUSD inside the wallet. And like the cell phone games that use micro purchasing, or even computer games that use the micro purchasing, there is no get back. It's not gambling. It's you're buying add-ons.
Now that would make sense. Yeah, that would make sense, but that's completely different from what's being discussed here. What's being discussed here is gambling.
Well, good. We don't need I think what's being discussed is how to make the wallet fun and how to promote adoption of the use of BitUSD. And gambling is one way to do it, but also games with micro purchasing is another.
What if it was implemented on the protocol level and then it was a feature that light clients could implement an interface for? We wouldn't need different downloads for the BitShares wallet then.
Yeah, I guess I don't have any problem with being built in if it's like the micro purchasing model. Like even like all operating systems come with games, right out of the box, and so it's not unprecedented.
Yeah, I think you've brought up an interesting distinction, Riverhead, with regard to whether it's gambling or whether it's per use, a pay per use. And adoption on a pay per use value is great. And if we need to extend the protocol to achieve that, that's fine. We have to evaluate the risk versus, the return on investment. How much time will it take? Bytemaster's already said it's an 80 man hour investment to implement this at the protocol level. So then you've got to look at what it will take to implement it on the user interface level, the wallet or whatever. There's some added costs for that as well. So
80
overall,
combined, implemented on the protocol level is 40 hours. GUI is 40 hours.
Would the idea of having in-app games that have micro purchases that get around the gambling stigma, would that fulfill what it is you're trying to do, Dan?
We've been discussing in-wallet purchases, everything from completely customize your avatar, your RoboHash, by buying add-ons and clothing and styles. I don't know. Basically, you can make your icon unique by paying to do it, and it's sort of just like bragging rights. Look what I bought. I bought this worthless digital asset, but people do that all the time on Second Life. They spend thousands of dollars to buy 3D models of a horse.
Her second job is designing fashion for Second Life characters. It's a huge business.
They call it vanity items.
So vanity items mainly have their value if you have a large user base and people have reason to see your vanity items. So we could spend a lot of time building vanity items. That's going to be a lot of work. And it's not going to generate a lot of revenue unless we have something else that drives users in. So we need to have something that drives users in, engages them, causes them to open the wallet on a regular basis, to buy money to put into the wallet, because they're getting something out of it. If we're going to create a game and have in-game purchases, well, that's a whole new software project all in its own right, of much larger magnitude of difficulty. So when we're talking game bang for buck, how much money do we have to spend? How long is it going to take it to implement? And how many users are we going to get back for it? I think, in my estimation, that a BitShares bingo will be the most bang for the buck. For the time spent, it will be decentralized, has the least stigma of all the gaming systems out there. Kids play it. Little old ladies at church play it. It's used for fundraisers. It's just a fun, entertaining pastime. I think that would probably be the biggest bang for the buck as far as time spent to support it and rate of return that we get for the network.
Would it have a similar revenue model to how the bingo game? I've run bingo games when I was racing to raise funds for the team, and it was you would sell the game card, and you got a share from the game. Envision it, the revenue model being similar.
Somewhat similar, yes. I've got a variation on it that doesn't depend upon everyone playing at the same time.
But just to be clear, this would pay out in BitUSD, BitCNY. This would pay out. This wouldn't be a carnival game. This would have payouts.
Yes.
And I think that would be important.
I don't know why, but for some reason, I'm okay with the bingo. And I know it's a silly distinction, but I think that it just, maybe we could even have it so like the portion that doesn't get paid out to the users goes to like a charity or something. I don't know. Like I just feel like bingo doesn't have the same sort of seedy stigma that a dice game has.
You're right, but we're opening Pandora's box. You start with bingo. You're opening up. You're opening up that possibility. You really is anyone naive enough to think that it would stop with bingo once you open this gambling up?
Well, no, of course not. But it's a public domain wallet. It can be forked. Anyone can do it. And I don't see any reason why there couldn't be 10 different wallets. We have a wallet that we market to finance people, a wallet that we might market to youth people. Public. It's the many wallets are going to come.
All right, let's identify this at protocol level. It's going to be Turing complete. Get to Turing complete wallet. A 6 developer. And once we get there, then there will be many wallets doing all manner of games on our network, and we will be in the same a year from now. We won't have any control over what the people do at the protocol level. So we're talking about, all right, what happens in the next year? I don't want to implement another dice game. Dice games are all over the place, so I don't see any value in doing something that's simple. First of all, dice is not a very good game for our network. You'd have to wait 15 minutes from the time you roll until the time you find out if you won. I don't think that has the instant feedback that people expect when they play dice games like Satoshi Dice. Bingo, on the other hand, is a perfect game for our network because we have one block every 10 seconds and you can interactively watch your card get filled out, and you have the highs and lows as you get close, right? And it's engaging and it brings the users in, and the user gets constant progress, and you're secure against delegates. So I think BitShares Bingo has a good ring to it. It's fun, it's friendly, and it gets people used to the speed of our network. And it works very well with the rate at which randomness is provided to our network.
I think Bingo is a good choice if you're looking at bringing in a demographic that we largely haven't brought in yet anyway, which would be, generally speaking, people who are, kind of like Riverhead said, the church-going crowd, kind of like my grandma or, even my mother. And I think
that demographic's a bit on the old side, though. We should be going for the younger crowd if we're going to really try and rope new customers in.
There's pluses and minuses to it, right? I mean, if you look at the paradigm with some of these Facebook games, and you look at how some of these games do it, they will offer people, hey, why don't you play in a social way with me, right? We can connect up, and if I connect you to the game and I get you to play it, I advertise the game. And if I get you to actually sign up for it and start playing with me, we both get, like a bonus in the game. We might get extra turns, or we might get the ability to sometimes what do you call it on the golf course whenever you fail? And
Mulligan.
Yeah, a mulligan. Kind of like you can pull a mulligan out of your hat, and you would normally have to pay for those things, but you get them for free for sharing it with other people. I mean, I can see something like that playing out. My big thing is, the more I think about it, and I have to be honest about it, the more I think about it, the more I start wondering how far this crossover between Play and BitShares could be in the future, especially when Bytemaster says at some point in time in the future, we're not going to have any control over what happens past the protocol level, right? And there's going to be forks of this stuff in the future as well. So where do you guys see this going? Are we going to stick with just, I mean, at some point in time, bingo is going to fade out, and there's going to have to be a need for other games, because this is just how games work. The trend rises and falls.
Well, it'd be okay if it fades out, because I think the whole idea here is one, to push adoption, demonstrate the performance of the blockchain and its speed, and make the wallet generally attractive. By the time it's fading out, I guess the hope is that we'd already have a network effect.
Are there any ways of creating games that would be based off of the market and like helping to achieve certain volume metrics and things like that? Like, as opposed to maybe something like bingo, have it like a meta game that builds on top of the exchange features that we already have.
Here's the difference between playing bingo on BitShares and on Satoshi Dice. So and you have to keep that money. If you want, I don't want to play in the casino. I want to own the casino, because I know gambling is stupid. But a lot of people have fun and they like the hope. But for every person that likes gambling, there's someone else who wants to own the casino. So the mere fact that, hey, we've got a decentralized bingo system and it's got some rake that causes yield to increase on bid assets means, hey, buying a bid asset's like buying a stake in the casino. And that is something that you're going to get a lot of people interested in.
Enoch makes a good point here. He's just said straight out charity bingo. Is that a thought that's interesting to you guys?
It's not really charity, though, because the system's collecting it. It goes to benefited asset holders. It's not that I don't think what Bytemaster's suggesting won't be profitable. I mean, I think it will be profitable. Somebody's going to play. It's just simply, the original message of BitShares is we are marketing towards, businesses. We are trying to be a bank. This whole argument of there's a bunch of different wallets that exist for Bitcoin. Yeah, that's true. They're made by other parties, though. They're not made by, right now, we don't have third parties making a whole lot of software and wallets for us. So if we put this out, it has the BitShares stamp all over it. This is essentially endorsed by us. And that's kind of the precedent that I'm worried about setting.
Where I agree with that, I also would disagree on one level. And this is my vision from the very beginning. What I gathered from the vision of BitShares was there were going to be multiple DACs that would be released. And you could, as a user, you could utilize any of these DACs that you felt were valuable to you. So what would be keeping us from creating a wallet in such a way that you can plug in these different DACs and use all of them and actually, interchange the currencies between them using like an internal auction house, or even the market features that are supplied by BitShares as the main DAC?
Oh, this is clearly a very controversial subject. I appreciate the discussion everyone's had. I'd like to change gears a little bit and talk about other approaches of gaining adoption. The minebitshares.com pool, the virtual mining pool, is currently bringing $20 a day into our ecosystem. It would be really nice to increase that to $2,000 a day. And all we have to do to increase that to $2,000 a day is to increase the number of people that are mining on our virtual mining pool.
Could you explain this whole concept of a virtual mining pool in a DPoS blockchain, or is this a point of, or is this a proof of work mining pool of some type?
A virtual mining pool is a mining pool that takes the most profitable altcoin, mines it, sells it, and buys Bitcoin, buys BitShares. We're basically putting sell pressure on all the mining competitors and buy pressure for BitShares if we can convince miners to switch to our virtual mining pool and get paid in BitShares. So my thinking is that, in theory, a virtual mining pool that's always picking and dynamically swapping among the most profitable altcoins is already going to give you the best bang for your buck from a miner's perspective. If we top it up with basically add 5% to the payout, we can make our virtual mining pool the most profitable mining pool. It'll cost us 5%, but we'll basically, you bring $100 to the table and we give you an extra $5. Well, does that help us or hurt us more by creating $100 of buy pressure and $5 of sell pressure? I think you see where this goes.
Why do you suppose it's not at the $2,000 a day level right now? What will it take to get people to play this pool a little bit more?
I think it's probably because our mining pool is not known, and because its profit is at best equal to where the miners are currently mining.
So it's kind of a marketing effort then to increase it.
Yes. Basically, we've given free money away to people who mine on our virtual mining pool, but the money does not, we're getting something for it, right? They're mining altcoins for us, and they're getting BitShares, and we're getting BitShares in the hands of people. And if we can convince the miners to mine in our virtual mining pool, maybe they'll just stay in BitShare.
Why would they want to do that rather than just mine the? In other words, what I'm trying to ask is, whatever proceeds from mining that they produce, anyways, they're doing it for a reason. They must feel there's value in it. What makes you think that we would seem as a more attractive, more gainful opportunity?
Because we're going to take the proceeds they currently get from mining and match an additional 5%.
I see.
What if we could pay them in BitUSD instead of BitShares? That way they got, every day they could see they were getting X amount, and they knew that they were getting interest off of what they were earning, instead of having to deal with the volatility of all these little altcoins.
I think that would be huge. That also promotes BitUSD, and it means that the miners wouldn't necessarily feel compelled to dump immediately.
Exactly. Gives utility.
Right. And in fact, they'd probably be, I think I'll hold off dumping because I'm getting interest on it as well. What it does is it causes more value to hold inside our system.
Plus, it'd probably be nice for them to say, hey, I'm making $1 a day or 50 cents a day. They can see it as actual, market peg dollars instead of, this Bitcoin that's going up and down the whole time.
Well, all right, now explain one thing. What does it take to get involved with this mining pool? Is there a user-issued asset, or is this a regular bid asset that you simply buy, and you're therefore investing in this mutual fund of mining pools, so to speak?
This is not a fund you invest in. This is a service that you can point your physical hardware at, and it will pay you currently in BitShares, but I think we should switch it to pay you in BitUSD.
Tom, typically the way these multi-pools work is for example, you don't even have a login to the site. The site publishes an address, like a web address with a port, and you put that into your mining hardware and in your mining software. And also in your mining software, you put in the account you want your payments to go. So whatever your BitUSD account is, and the mining pool doesn't care who you are. It gives you work to do. You do the work and give it back to the pool. And then as blocks are found and coins are sold on the various exchanges, the BitUSD is paid to whatever account you supply.
I see. I thank you very much, Riverhead.
I think this is one of those things that Lucky Bit hasn't been on the forums for a while, but we have often talked a lot about the concept of serious, mining as a game, as a serious game. And I personally think that this really falls more in line with what we're trying to do with BitShares than something like Bingo. Not to bring back the Bingo thing, but if we're trying to stick with being this DAC that does, that's a market making engine that can scale to become like a NASDAQ level exchange or larger, only at, without front running and all that good stuff, then I think this is a really good way of moving forward, as opposed to maybe the other alternatives that we were offered today.
I really like this idea. I came here as a multi-pool miner with the GridSeed ASICs script miners. Miners are notoriously, they'll switch to whatever pool's the most profitable. I mean, within a heartbeat, we literally check it all the time. If we would be willing to offer a 5% premium and pay in bit assets, you post it in the Bitcoin Talk mining thread, and I don't think you'll have to do any other marketing.
Last Agile seemed a bit upset about this. Can he perhaps talk a little bit about, or type a little bit about why he's so against this?
The message I received from Last Agile is try not to do something that's useless, basically. I don't know if that is taken. I don't know what you received, but...
Well, I was just looking up, and when the mining first came up, it was like, what? All these exclamation points, and now it's, don't do useless things. So it's clearly a hit a nerve. I'm just wondering what that is.
This is no different than saying, hey, if you deposit $100 into our exchange, we'll give you a $5 bonus. It's a simple referral program. It's a bonus for signing up that we can't be cheated.
Banks do it all the time. Open a checking account, get $100,
Well, not only that, it creates sell pressure on all these potential competitors that are mined into existence using our superior protocols.
I don't see the drawbacks to it. I think it's a good idea. It certainly is, in my view, a lot better than the gambling approach.
And it's more in line with what we do.
They're making a lot of too. Have like a random person that gets like $100 a week extra, just randomly, so you can find it in lotto.
That's a good point. There are coins that have tried that in the past, where the payouts are randomized, but you wouldn't even necessarily have to have them randomized. Just add random rewards that are extra bonuses, so you could actually use that as PR or news stories. Somebody earned an extra 10,000 bit USD. It happens once a month. Once the pool becomes big enough, and you have like a list of the people who've won that, and you can actually interview them and do all kinds of good stuff like that.
You pay people directly in BitUSD so that they start out in the BitUSD mindset. They start getting yield, and they don't feel exposed to the volatility. Miners are extremely sensitive to volatility. Where else can you mine and get paid out in dollars?
The Shapeshift edition we've got on board now. People, if people are really interested in receiving benefits in Bitcoin, this is a quick way that they can do it on our site and participate and help us and get what they want out of it, which would be Bitcoin or whatever altcoin they might be interested in.
Yeah, what's going to happen is they're going to mine. They're going to get BitUSD. They'll probably make their first few conversions to Bitcoin, but ultimately they're going to be attracted by that interest rate, and they're going to probably be, for good old-fashioned greed, start to keep the BitUSD and then perhaps use it, keep it within the system.
These computations do not help our network. Basically, we're buying their hash power from them, and then directing their hash power to altcoins, which pay us. And then we take the money we receive from the altcoins and buy BitShares. This virtual mining pool does not have anything to do with our protocol or security. It is nothing other than a means of people to convert computational power and electricity directly into BitUSD.
I think to answer someone else's question earlier at Data Security Node, we want to have them mine directly into BitUSD because miners do not sit there and watch their miners. You know, they're in a warehouse, they're in a basement, they're wherever, and until they get an alert that something goes wrong, they don't want anything to do with them. And so if you mine straight to BitUSD, it saves the manual step they have to do to get rid of the volatility. Otherwise, they'll probably just mine to BTC.
Exactly.
So I think that if we did this, it's just a matter of making it the most profitable option for the miners. And I think going straight to BitUSD is huge because it means they can set it and forget it. They know what their profit margins are. They know how many BitUSD. They're going to get more dollars per hash mining with us. They're going to end up holding BitUSD. Every single one of these miners is going to say, hey, this is really cool. We can now advertise, yeah, mine BitShares. The entire mining community, which hates us because we know we're not proof of work, will end up mining for us. And it's going to cost us something, right? This is not free, but the cost is a fraction of the new capital that's brought in.
So data security brought up another interesting point about asset of choice. One thing we may want to implement, I don't know how hard it would be, but when you send the login, like your login is basically the account you want your asset sent to, like say Riverhead would be the account. But if I said riverhead.usd or riverhead.bitsilver, the pool could, buy multiple assets on an exchange if they're available and pay out to the user's desire.
I think that we are so small that we want to really concentrate on the buying pressure for efficiency's sake in one market rather than end markets.
I agree. We should just push one particular asset, whether it's BitUSD, BitCNY, whatever.
Yeah, true. But the mechanism could be built in.
Actually, BitCNY would be something I would really push because Trade BTS does direct BitCNY deposit to BTC38. So we can say BitCNY is CNY for the purposes of these miners.
It effectively is, like, literally.
I have a kind of complex workflow or maybe cash flow. I'm just curious. I would love to get everybody's opinion on it. I don't know how much you've been told or whatever, but we now have a router. And we're selling routers and TV sticks or hardware wallets, whatever you make them into, really, in primarily Europe and the USA. I would like to set up an automated cash flow where I can get the money to the suppliers who are right now in China and later on in Vietnam. I'll just sort of sit back and I'd love to hear people's suggestions on how to do that. Most people, I think, will be paying in some sort of digital currency. The product is being manufactured right now in China, and about 3 months later, we're going to shift to Vietnam. But what I'd like to do is set up a script that can accept essentially, I was going to say any cryptocurrency with a market cap over $2 million, giving it a pretty broad range, and convert to something. It's actually sounding like BitCNY might be a really good idea. That website was BTC38?
Yes.
Okay. So then programmatically convert the cryptocurrency that I'm getting from customers, some of that to BitCNY, and then the rest of it, some to salespeople and some to myself here in Vietnam. I'm just trying to figure out if it's possible to script this or if this is just something I'm going to end up doing manually.
Everything's possible to script. Our API is available in Python, so if you know how to do Python, you can make the API calls and script your transfers.
Okay. If I want to, I do want to implement an internal basket currency for Dawn. It would just be another script, basically. What I'd like to do is have some precious metals, some actual currencies, and some cryptocurrencies represented. Same thing?
Yes, I think so. I am curious. Somebody made a comment here about BTC38 being a very unsafe exchange.
I know nothing about it personally.
I've used it on a regular basis and withdrawn decent-sized amounts from it. Transaction times are literally about 10 seconds. I mean, it's the fastest exchange I've ever seen.
Yeah, I've had very good experiences with it as well. So that's the place that I've been recommending people go to liquidate their BTS so they can put food on the table. Okay, I haven't tried yunbi.com, yunbi.com. I'll have to give that a shot. How is the liquidity there versus BTC38? Because BTC38 seems to have the largest volume with the lowest spreads.
I think any business of any size is going to have dissatisfied customers eventually. I don't think you're going to find any exchange with a squeaky clean rep.
Is there anyone else doing anything like what I'm proposing to do with BTS? I know that there are other organizations listing an asset inside of BTS, and I'm just wondering how I might get in touch with them and kind of learn from their experience.
With respect to what for that?
Okay, with respect to, let's say, I'll go real specific. Issuing a 1 trillion unit asset and then tracking 6 months in the future dividends, but in the present tense, corporate voting and management.
The closest thing that I can think of is BitShares itself.
Okay, and so that goes back to the concept that, and by the way, Bytemaster, thank you for your advice. Really gave Dan and I a lot to think about from last week. That might be the path we take with forking it itself. And if we did that, how can we do that in a way that's, A, clearly non-hostile, and B, mutually beneficial?
The most mutually beneficial is to do it on our exchange, but I guess it's a timeline. What is your development time? How much money are you going to spend in forking and maintaining a fork? Because I would be very interested in allowing the implementation of a DAC within a DAC on BitShares to support your use case. And if you're going to be putting money into something like that, I definitely think we can get the features there for bid assets, because I want user-issued assets to be fully functional for regular companies. You asked who else is doing it. I think there's a non-zero probability that BitShares Music with their notes will be an asset on our BitShares exchange.
Okay. All right, DAC within a DAC. So we'd be listing an asset on BitShares, and then we would co-develop the client toward more robust voting support?
We already support voting for arbitrary proposals with user-issued assets, at least in the development branch of the code that's on its way to be included in BitShares itself. So if you can, because we already support voting, you can already support electing people to run things. The only thing that would be left to do is to have a automated payout system to the people who have the support. I think that once we have a full Turing complete scripting environment, that we could completely automate that on the BitShares blockchain. But obviously, that won't be available to you for a year. But I'm guessing you don't need everything available right now. You've got a lot of work to do between now and then.
We anticipate, now this would be my co-founder Dan and I, we anticipate to be basically BDFL, Benevolent Dictator for Life, until, or BDFN, I guess, Benevolent Dictator for Now, until like sometime between August and December. And at that point, we plan to be diffuse enough where voting would matter.
Okay. So until now, you can be trusted with the issuance of the currency. And then once we get scripting enabled, you can deposit the rest of the balance into a script that will distribute funds according to how people vote with your asset.
Whoa. Okay. Can you go over that just a little bit? What you just said, that was interesting.
Once we have full Turing completeness, the scripting engine will be able to know what the total vote is on any proposal for any asset, and it can make decisions based upon voting, and the script on the blockchain will be able to store balances that it has sovereignty over for dispersing those according to voting results. So once we have full scripting, you can completely encode whatever business model you want, including the games we talked about earlier, but also automatic payout to elected managers.
That's great. Supposing for a second that we wanted our organization to look like a visualization of a peer-to-peer network. What I'm essentially saying is that we want to stay really flat, be really diffuse, and not really allow it to build a monolithic center, but instead have many small teams on different projects. And we're thinking that those probably should be their own company, or we're thinking about calling them modules, and plug into the greater whole and multiply one another's work effect. That's actually one of the reasons we got into doing hardware is, well, first of all, I think just about everybody here has seen the threat in terms of DRM being implemented and platforms closing up. That was one of our drivers. Another one was having hardware available that could take full advantage of the software so that we could provide the services that we wanted to on top of both. So we view hardware as the bottom layer of our stack.
Well, you can have multiple assets for multiple companies with scripting stuff that dictates how they all relate to each other. That's all in our long-term roadmap. In the short term, obviously, you're taking the dictator for now approach, which is exactly what you should be doing in the short term. So I think by the time we're ready to have full scripting, you'll be a little bit closer to knowing what type of structure you actually want. And in the meantime, people can get your tokens and speculate.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
While we're talking about user-issued assets for the near term, is there? This is a very open-ended question here. Is there a place I can go that will give me everything I need to know about user-issued assets? I know documentation is thin right now in all fronts, but I'm trying to implement this, and I'm having a hard time finding the information I need. And Fadot would probably benefit from this as well.
You're right. I need to do a blog post that talks about all the things you can do with user-issued assets. I've made a couple of forum posts about new things you can do, but I haven't documented everything you can do. The closest thing is that talks about the very high level is the benefits of becoming a gateway blog post on bytemaster.bitshares.org. That tells you all about being a gateway, what user-issued assets allow you to do. So from the perspective of a gateway, it tells you all the features of user-issued assets. But I haven't got into the features of user-issued assets from two other use cases. One is stock in a company, and the other is ticket sales.
That would be very useful indeed. I guess I'm kind of focused more on the nuts and bolts of the API, how I would use the API, the wallet, command line interface, or whatever to actually do the things you're about to talk about in the forthcoming blog post you mentioned.
Yeah, if you want to get the latest API, we have the entire API is documented in the JSON file that describes the API, including all the arguments and everything. So if you want to look at the API and the documentation there, go into our GitHub repository, libraries, API, and you can look at the blockchain API, the wallet API, and there's several API files there, and they'll list all the methods. If you download DevShares and you type help, it will give you a more user-friendly listing of all the calls. And if you type help in a particular call, you get a detailed documentation, relatively detailed documentation about what calls are there and what the parameters are and what they mean. As far as a tutorial that brings it all together, that doesn't exist yet, but I would love for someone to produce one.
I'll take a look at the docs if I can find them under the thing you just mentioned. That's good. Thank you.
So wait, is posting something about Reddit on smart wallets. So just something to check out for everybody. Matt, would you be willing to post that to the forums as well? So those who are interested but are not able to attend this hangout are able to?
All right, well, this call has gone 40 minutes longer than it should have, but I think we covered a lot of really good topics today. I'm excited that you guys like the mining pool bonus idea, and I think that we are in general agreement that of the gaming stuff, bingo is better than dice. To have more than one wallet if we're going to have that, but obviously the need to focus on a usable, accessible wallet is the highest priority. All the things I've been talking about today are not taking any of Valentine's time away from refining the wallet. The lightweight wallet, like I said earlier, is about to come out, and that wallet is going to be extremely easy to use, navigate without any performance slowdown stuff that you might complain. There's been complaints about our wallet, but in reality, I've been running every version of the wallet and updating it in place and haven't had a single issue. I just upgraded the latest version every single time, and it runs very smoothly for me. But I do think that the people that are having problems with it are Windows users with small amounts of RAM and a physical hard disk. So I really hope that a lightweight client will be a better alternative for those users. But it would be good to have some feedback of other people that run the wallet on machines with 8 gigs of RAM and a solid state drive on a Mac. It seems to work just fine. So I think that's the primary difference in user experience, and Light Wallet should resolve most of it.
I have one last question for you, Bytemaster. This will be a real quickie here, and that is it possible, yes or no, whether or not you can take the blockchain that's been downloaded in one client, like a Linux client, and port that over to Windows, or vice versa, the actual blockchain download?
Say that again. I missed the first part of that.
Is it possible to transfer a blockchain that's been downloaded from one client, like say a Windows client, onto another client? Use the blockchain that's been downloaded in one instance on another platform, using the files from that.
Possibly. Our serialization format should be compatible. It all depends on whether or not Level DB supports that. Try it. I think it might work. I know you can copy it from one Mac to another Mac, or one Linux to another Linux, but I don't know about Windows to Mac or Linux to Mac, or the other way around.
Yeah, it basically has to do with the manner that the format of the files in the database, and whether or not the file system will be supported. That's really what it boils down to. I'll just give it a try.
Yes, people are reporting that it works.
That'll save me a lot of time. Thanks.
So, yes, we are definitely trying to improve the overall wallet experience. The latest stuff that Valentine has is getting a lot better. I've been able to use the market stuff recently without much problem. We are going to be revamping the way wallets and keys are managed in the wallet in a future version, with the goal of reducing the complexity of wallet scanning and eliminating that. I think our biggest contributor to bad wallet experience is actually the Titan scanning and the large amount of keys if you have a lot of transactions and a lot of accounts. So definitely working on improving that.
Well, I think that we could probably talk all day, and we are sitting at 1 hour and 40 minutes. After editing this, it'll probably be about 1 hour and 20 minutes. So do you guys mind if we end this for this week, and then we can pick up anything else that you have questions regarding next week?
That's fine with me. I just want to thank everybody. The answers to my questions were really helpful, and catch you guys next week, of course.